Oh, I know. It's building up. The excitement is palpable. All right. Good afternoon. Happy Monday, everyone. Today, the Secretary General spoke in a video message at the official ceremony of the pre-summit of the Food System Summit, which started in Rome. He stressed that we are at a pivotal moment and we are seriously off track to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals by 2030. The Secretary General noted that the pandemic, which still assails us, has highlighted the links between inequality, poverty, food, disease, and our planet. He stressed that at the pre-summit, we can define the scope of our collective ambition and strengthen our efforts to achieve all 17 Sustainable Development Goals by transforming our food systems. Also in Rome, the Deputy Secretary General, Amina Mohammed, this morning spoke at the opening plenary of the pre-summit for the Food System Summit. She said that even as the pandemic has physically pushed us apart, the Food System Summit process has brought people together around the simple idea that food can help us accelerate our actions and bring in solutions to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. The Deputy Secretary General stressed that there is no one size that fits all, that we must work country by country, region by region, community by community, to ensure that the diversity of needs are addressed. The Deputy Secretary General also spoke to the press along with other officials present at the pre-summit. Ms. Mohammed stressed that by 2050, the world's population is expected to grow to almost 10 billion, and that we need to ensure that we can feed each person and that no one goes to bed hungry. She emphasized that we need to find solutions and then face the challenge of implementing them afterwards. Later today, the Deputy Secretary General will attend a televised event with Andrea Bocelli and Food Systems Heroes. Tomorrow, she will participate in the opening of a ministerial roundtable and will hold another series of bilateral meetings. The Secretary General issued a statement following the G20 meeting on environment, climate, and energy. He said that the world urgently needs a clear and unambiguous commitment to the 1.5-degree goal of the Paris Agreement from all G20 nations. There's no pathway to this goal without the leadership of the G20, he added. Science tells us that in order to meet this ambitious yet achievable goal, the world must achieve carbon neutrality before 2050 and cut dangerous greenhouse gas emissions by 45% by 2030 from 2010 levels, the Secretary General said, adding that we are way off track. In the remaining days before COP26, the Secretary General urged all G20 and other leaders to commit to net zero by mid-century, present more ambitious 2030 national climate plans, and deliver on concrete policies and actions aligned with a net zero future and including no new coal after 2021, phasing out fossil fuel subsidies, and agreeing to a minimum international carbon pricing floor as proposed by the IMF. The full statement is online. The UN mission in Afghanistan, UNAMA, reports that civilian casualties in Afghanistan in the first half of 2021 reached record levels, including a particularly sharp increase in killings and injuries since May, when international military forces began their withdrawal and the fighting intensified following the Taliban's offensive. In a new report issued today, the UN mission says that Afghanistan is on course for 2021 to witness the highest ever number of documented civilian casualties in a single year since UNAMA records began, unless there is a significant de-escalation. Much of the battlefield action during the deadliest months of May and June took place outside cities, in areas with comparatively low population levels, the mission reports. The number of civilian casualties during May and June, 783 killed and 1,609 injured, was the highest for those months since UNAMA began its systematic documentation in 2009. Deborah Lyons, the Secretary General's Special Representative for Afghanistan, said that the report provides a clear warning that unprecedented numbers of Afghan civilians will perish and be maimed this year if the increasing violence is not stemmed. I feel like that's something from Pegasus. Yeah. Well, it's safe now. Turning to Yemen, the Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs says that heavy rains have hit the country over the last few days, causing serious flooding in parts of Hodeidah, Al-Jawf, and Sana'a. This includes areas hosting internally displaced people who had fled conflict in other locations. Humanitarian agencies are working with local authorities to identify needs and to provide initial assistance. Priorities include shelter, food, water, and essential household items. More rain and storms are expected in much of the country over the next 24 hours, including medium to heavy rainfall in flood-prone areas, including in Thais Governorate. And we have seen the recent statements from the Ansar Allah authorities in Sana'a on the Safar tanker issue, which we find disappointing. As we've told the Security Council and everyone else many times, the UN is eager to help. Back in November 2020, we agreed with Ansar Allah on a mission plan to assess the tanker, and if conditions are safe enough on board, to do some light maintenance to help minimize the risk of an oil spill. From what we can understand, the Houthis are demanding advance guarantees that the UN will complete all the potential light maintenance activities in the mission plan. The Safar is a very dangerous site, and advance guarantees before verifying conditions on board are not possible. That is also why the November 2020 agreement explicitly conditions the light maintenance activities on the safety environment we find on board. We remain eager to help. For a UN-led solution, that starts with an assessment, and if it's safe enough, some light maintenance that we hope will buy a bit more time for a longer-term solution. We also remain open-minded regarding any other safe, quick solutions to this problem. The UN mission in Mali reports that earlier today, 5 peacekeepers were injured in Agalhok, Kidal region, during an attack involving an improvised explosive device. A quick reaction force was immediately dispatched to the site of the incident, and the wounded were transported to a hospital for treatment. Yesterday, there was an indirect fire attack also in Agalhok, this time on mission premises. There were no reports of casualties or damage. Meanwhile, over the weekend, mission assets, including helicopters, dispersed armed combatants before they were able to launch an attack in Bandiogu in central Mali. Peacekeepers continue to monitor the situation closely. The UN mission in South Sudan is urging local and national authorities to put an end to extrajudicial executions following the killing of at least 42 people accused of criminal activity who were not given access to a fair trial. In some of the cases documented by our colleagues at the mission's Human Rights Division, victims in Warab State were allegedly brought before local officials for sentencing. Eyewitnesses reported that some men were taken to remote areas, tied to trees, and executed by firing squad. The mission has raised its concerns directly with local officials and also asked the Ministry of Justice and Constitutional Affairs to investigate and prosecute those responsible. Our peacekeeping colleagues are helping build the capacity of rule of law of institutions across the country. They also facilitated the deployment of mobile courts and are in touch with the Chief Justice of South Sudan to support the deployment of more judges to the area. And we have an update from the World Food Programme and UNICEF on the situation in Madagascar. Today, they're telling us that as the drought worsens, malnutrition rates among children are expected to quadruple in the country's south. At least 500,000 children under the age of 5 are expected to be acutely malnourished there. This includes 110,000 boys and girls in severe condition. In the worst affected district, Ambavombe Androy, malnutrition rates have reached an alarming 27%. Unless urgent steps are taken, there's a risk of famine, the agencies say. WFP and UNICEF have been working closely with the Malagasy government and partners. As the crisis deepens, the agencies are in the process of strengthening their emergency nutrition response in the south. But to address this emergency, they call for a robust, multi-sectoral prevention and response plan in collaboration with all partners and the national authorities. The Security Council held closed consultations this morning on the UN Regional Center for Preventive Diplomacy for Central Asia. The Secretary General's Special Representative and head of the center, Natalia Herman, briefed Council members. And this afternoon, the Security Council will hold closed consultations on COVID-19 and other matters. A COVAX update for you today from Honduras, which recently received more than 1.5 million doses through COVAX, which were donated by the government of the United States. This is the second donation of vaccines from the United States to Honduras through COVAX. So far, Honduras has received 3.6 million doses through COVAX. This is 92% of the total vaccines the country is set to receive from COVAX. These doses will cover 20% of the country's population. Last, I have a note on the Philippines. The UN team in the Philippines has just launched its first national-level joint program on human rights. The 3-year program was developed to implement a Human Rights Council resolution, which was adopted last October 2020. It outlined how to boost national capacity and technical cooperation to promote and protect human rights in the country. The initiative aims to strengthen domestic investigation and accountability mechanisms, boost data gathering on alleged police violations, and enhance engagement with civil society and the Commission on Human Rights. The resident coordinator, Gustavo Gonzalez, signed the initiative with Filipino authorities and called this new program a critical milestone to support a wide range of national institutions. And I'll now take questions. Ibtisam, yes.
Farhan, any comments on the latest development in Tunisia?
Funny you should ask that. Yes. Yes, I have that. What I can tell you is that we are following the situation in Tunisia very closely since the announcement by President Said yesterday. We call on all stakeholders to exercise restraint, refrain from violence, and ensure that the situation remains calm. All disputes and disagreements should be resolved through dialogue.
Sorry, I have a follow-up.
Yes.
Do you consider it to be a coup? Because it was described by some critics of the president as a coup. And is the Secretary General or anyone from your office in contact with any Tunisian officials?
We are in contact through our team that's there on the ground, and we'll also be in contact with officials here with the mission as matters proceed. At this stage, like I said, we're monitoring the situation, and you'll have seen what our initial comments are, but we'll see how this goes ahead, and we'll continue to be in touch with our Tunisian counterparts. Edie?
Quick follow-up on that. What kind of presence does the United Nations have in Tunisia at this point?
We do have, I believe, a country team there, and I seem to remember that we recalled. I recall last week we mentioned that that country team was helpful also in the distribution of COVAX vaccines to Tunisia, which it's in need of right now, and I think. think aside from the resident coordinator and the country team, that we still have some personnel from the Libya mission who would also work there as a backstop.
Is the Secretary General concerned that the protests in particular and this conflict over power in Tunisia could spill over into what was already a volatile region?
I don't want to speculate on what the future might hold. We're hoping that the situation will remain calm, and we're trying to see to it that all the various parties on the ground do what they can to ensure that the situation does remain calm. Obviously, as you just noted yourself, the region is a very volatile one, and it's certainly a region that cannot bear to have more unrest than it has presently had.
And has any senior UN officials been in contact with the president or any of the other Tunisian officials?
I don't know about any contact with the president. Like I said, both at the country level and here through the mission, we are and will be in touch with the mission with the Tunisians.
I have one other question.
Well, let me come back to you because I think that there's a Tunisia-based set of questions happening. Yes, Celia.
It's about vaccine. Why every rich country or so-called rich country is trying to vaccinate its own people? A lot of countries like Africa, the African continent, don't have access to vaccines. So it's like a sort of catch-22, because the world will not get off or get back to a normal life if nothing is done. So what can WHO do?
Well,
or the UN?
The UN can't do more than we are able to do with the support of the member states. This is why the Secretary General has been saying the same things that you've been saying, that the problem will not be solved until it is solved everywhere in the world, including in Africa. He's made very clear the need to make sure that there's vaccine equity, that vaccines go to all the parts of the world that do not currently have it, with a particular eye on places such as Africa. We've been doing what we can through the COVAX initiative. We're very thankful for the countries that have been supporting and donating vaccines through COVAX. And yet, we definitely need to have more of this done. Otherwise, this is a crisis and a pandemic that will not end. Yes, please.
Thanks, Farhan. Just a quick follow-up on latest developments in Tunisia. Security forces there have raided Al Jazeera's office in Tunis. The journalists there were told to leave, and their equipment was confiscated. Does the Secretary General have a comment on this, particularly as it regards press freedom in the country?
Certainly, we're dismayed by these reports, and we hope that all reporters, including the ones at Al Jazeera, will be able to go about their work without harassment. And we want to make sure that as we have the situation on the ground in Tunisia, that press freedoms are respected. Yes.
On a different subject
Yeah.
entirely, Farhan, we are now just about 2 months from the high-level week at the General Assembly. Has the Secretary General made a recommendation on how it should be convened?
Well, I think you'll have seen that that in fact the President of the General Assembly, Volkan Bozkır, came out with an informational note last week on the 22nd, and there have been letters that he put out both on the 14th of July and more recently on the 23rd of July, last Friday, setting out the scenarios and proposals to member states for high-level week. My General Assembly colleague, Amy Quantrill, will be able to talk more at length about this tomorrow when she's at the briefings. But just point out a couple of the highlights from that information note. The President of the General Assembly talked about the need to ensure that there would be in-person meetings. As the situation in New York has improved, the President has implemented an increase in the number of delegates in the General Assembly Hall, so that for the high-level week, it'll be at 1+3 for the General Assembly Hall. And then to ensure that all member states have equal opportunity to participate in high-level week, the option for member states to send a pre-recorded video statement was included if delegations are unable to travel due to ongoing COVID-related concerns. So it'll be a hybrid setup with some video statements and then some presence of potentially 1+3 in the GA hall. And we'll get more of these ironed out, but some of the relevant details are, like I said, in the 2 letters that the GA president has sent to the member states.
Since I hadn't seen the letter from the 23rd, and I'm not sure anybody else had. Were those recommendations, or is that policy now of what's going to happen?
I think this is essentially a set of steps that were agreed upon in his discussions with member states. What we can do is after this briefing, I'll try to send you a link to the two sites. So we'll send that to the correspondence list, so you can click on the link and see the letters themselves.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes, please, Ray.
Thank you, Farhan. Just back to Tunisia, does the United Nations consider what happened just like an internal change made by the president, or a coup as say, member of the parliament?
I don't have anything further to say about the steps that were taken at the national level. Like I said, for us right now, the important part is that all stakeholders exercise restraint, avoid all violence, and ensure that the situation remains calm, and we'll continue to follow it as it progresses. And unless I see any further questions, Ephraim, on screen, you have a question? Please, over to you, Ephraim. Hello? I think you're muted. Please unmute.
Hear me?
Yeah. Good.
Okay, thanks, Farhan. Sorry about that. If you could just elaborate just a little more on what the new Houthi demands are concerning the sapper tanker and what exactly is being done these days in terms of negotiating with them over this issue.
Well, we're continuing to negotiate. As I just mentioned, the big point of dispute really is that they want, as I said, an agreement in advance so that we to perform light maintenance, and they wanted that the light maintenance activities to be mentioned in the mission plan. We can't provide those advance guarantees for the reason that I just mentioned, which is the lack of safety on board the ship. First, we need to do an assessment and see whether it's possible to do that. If it is safe, we are definitely willing to do light maintenance activities. But first, we have to make sure that it's safe. That's where we need to find a solution. Okay, and I don't see anything further in chat. So if that's the case,
I have a question.
Iftikhar? Yes, please.
Yes, sir.
Yes, go ahead. You're muted, Iftikhar. Please unmute and try again.
Thank you, Farhan. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. With regard to UNAMA's report, which speaks about a record number of casualties in Afghanistan, is any progress being made to bring the Afghan government and the Taliban to the negotiating table?
We are doing what we can to do that, and we have been supportive of the process. As you know, our envoys, Jean Arnaud and Deborah Lyons, have been also in touch with many different parties to try to make sure that the parties stay on the table. We've been encouraged by the fact that the parties have remained in touch in talks in Doha, and we hope to continue supporting that process. All right. Have a good afternoon, everyone.